The rain was coming down hard that Tuesday night in October. Jake could hear it hitting his apartment window while he sat at his small desk, surrounded by textbooks and papers. He was a 24-year-old graduate student studying psychology, and his thesis was due in 3 months. The stress was getting to him. His apartment was tiny, just one room with a bed, a desk, and a small kitchen area. Most nights he liked the quiet. It helped him focus on his work. But tonight felt different somehow. Maybe it was the storm outside, or maybe it was because he'd been alone with his books for too many days in a row. Jake had always been the quiet type. In college, while other students went to parties, he preferred staying in his dorm room reading. His friends used to joke that books were his best friends. They weren't entirely wrong. People were complicated. Books made sense. He was reading about human behavior patterns when he heard a soft knock on his door. Jake looked at the clock. It was almost 10 p.m. Who would visit this late? When he opened the door, he saw Luna standing there. She was soaked from head to toe, her dark hair sticking to her face. Water was dripping from her jacket onto the hallway floor. In her hand was a small overnight bag. Luna was in his research methods class. They'd been study partners for about 8 months now. She was smart, probably smarter than him if he was being honest. She always knew the right answers in class and could explain difficult concepts in ways that made perfect sense. But Jake had never seen her like this. Usually, Luna was confident and put together. She always seemed to have everything under control. Tonight she looked lost and vulnerable. "Hey," she said quietly, looking down at her wet shoes. "I'm really sorry to bother you this late. I know we usually just see each other in class and at the library." "It's okay," Jake said, stepping aside to let her in. "Come in before you catch a cold. You're completely soaked." Luna stepped into his small apartment and looked around. It was the first time she'd been there. Jake suddenly felt embarrassed about the mess. The unmade bed, the empty coffee cups on his desk, the pile of laundry in the corner. "Your place is nice," she said, trying to smile. "Very academic." Jake laughed nervously. "That's a polite way of saying it's messy. No, I like it. It feels real. Like someone actually lives here and works here." She set her bag down near the door. "My roommate's place always looks like a magazine. Nobody actually lives there." Jake noticed she said roommate's place instead of our place. That seemed important somehow. "So what's going on?" he asked gently. "Not that you need a reason to visit, but you seem upset." Luna sat down on his small couch and ran her hands through her wet hair. For a moment, she didn't say anything. Jake could hear the rain getting heavier outside. "My roommate's boyfriend moved in," she finally said. "It was supposed to be temporary, just for a week while he found his own place. That was a month ago." Jake sat down in his desk chair, giving her space but showing he was listening. "At first, it was just annoying. He leaves his stuff everywhere, eats my food, plays video games loudly at night. But now," she paused, looking uncomfortable, "they fight constantly. Screaming matches that go on for hours. I can't study, can't sleep, can't even relax." "That sounds terrible," Jake said. "Have you talked to your roommate about it?" Luna laughed, but there was no humor in it. "She says I'm being dramatic, that I need to learn to live with other people. But Jake, it's not about living with other people. It's about basic respect." Jake had never heard Luna sound so frustrated. In class, she was always calm and logical. Seeing her like this made him want to help somehow. "I've been staying at the library until it closes every night," she continued. "Then I go to 24-hour coffee shops or just walk around campus until I'm too tired to care about the noise. But tonight, with this storm," she gestured toward the window where rain was still pounding against the glass. "You couldn't stay out in this weather," Jake finished for her. "I know we don't really know each other outside of school," Luna said quickly. "And I know this is weird asking to stay here. I have some friends I could call, but they all live in the dorms with roommates, and I didn't want to impose on a whole group of people." Jake was surprised to realize that Luna thought they didn't know each other well. They'd spent countless hours studying together in the library. They'd grabbed coffee after difficult exams. They'd even complained to each other about their professors. Maybe they didn't know personal details about each other's lives, but Jake felt like he knew her mind, her way of thinking. "You're not imposing," he said. "Of course you can stay here. I have extra blankets and the couch is more comfortable than it looks." Luna's shoulders relaxed for the first time since she'd arrived. "Thank you, really. I'll be gone first thing in the morning, I promise. Don't worry about that. Stay as long as you need to." Jake got up and went to his small closet to find extra blankets and pillows. When he turned around, Luna was looking at his desk covered with research papers. "Is this your thesis work?" she asked, walking over to look more closely. "Yeah. It's about communication patterns and relationships, how people say things without actually saying them, if that makes sense." Luna picked up one of his papers and skimmed it. "This is really interesting. You're looking at nonverbal communication as a primary form of emotional expression." Jake was impressed that she understood his work so quickly. Most people's eyes glazed over when he tried to explain his research. "Exactly. I think people communicate their real feelings through actions, body language, timing, all sorts of ways that have nothing to do with words. Like showing up at someone's apartment in the rain instead of just asking for help directly," Luna said with a small smile. Jake felt his face get warm. "I guess that would be a good example." They looked at each other for a moment, and Jake realized something had shifted between them. It was subtle, but it was there. Luna wasn't just his study partner asking for a favor. She had chosen to come to him, specifically him, when she needed help. "Are you hungry?" Jake asked, breaking the moment. "I was about to order some food. I live on takeout these days, and that sounds perfect, but let me pay for half. It's the least I can do." As Jake called the Chinese restaurant down the street, Luna explored his small apartment. She looked at his books, his few photographs, the coffee mug collection he'd started in college. Jake watched her from the corner of his eye while he placed their order. There was something different about having her in his space. The apartment felt less lonely, more alive somehow. Jake realized he'd gotten so used to being alone that he'd forgotten what it felt like to share space with another person. When he hung up the phone, Luna was standing by his window watching the rain. "It's really coming down out there," she said. "Good thing you're inside now." She turned to look at him, and there was something in her expression that made Jake's heart beat a little faster. It wasn't just gratitude. It was something deeper, warmer. "Yeah," she said softly. "Good thing." The food arrived 30 minutes later. Jake and Luna sat on his small couch, sharing containers of fried rice and sweet and sour chicken. The storm outside was still going strong, but inside the apartment felt warm and cozy. "This is really good," Luna said, using her chopsticks like an expert. "I haven't had a proper meal in days. I've been living on energy bars and coffee." "That's not healthy," Jake said, concerned. "You need to take better care of yourself." "I know. It's just been hard to focus on normal things like eating when my living situation is so stressful." She took another bite and smiled. "This feels normal, though. Just sitting here eating good food, having a real conversation." Jake noticed how she said real conversation. He wondered what that meant. Were their conversations in the library not real? Or was she talking about conversations with other people in her life? "Can I ask you something?" Luna said, setting down her chopsticks. "Why did you let me stay here tonight? I mean, we're friends, but we're not super close friends. Most people would have suggested I call someone else or stay in a hotel." Jake thought about her question while he chewed. Why had he immediately said yes? It wasn't like him to make quick decisions, especially about having someone stay over. He usually needed time to think things through. "I guess because you looked like you really needed help," he said finally. "And because I know you're not the type of person who asks for help unless you really need it." Luna nodded slowly. "You're right about that. I hate asking for help. I've always been the type to figure things out on my own." "So what made tonight different?" "I don't know exactly. Maybe I just got tired of being strong all the time." She picked up a piece of chicken with her chopsticks. "It's exhausting, you know. Always having to be the responsible one, the one who has everything together." Jake understood that feeling more than she knew. People always saw him as the serious, studious type who never had problems. They didn't see the nights when he stayed awake worrying about his future, or the times when he felt completely lost and confused. "I think people assume that because I get good grades and always turn my assignments in on time, my life is easy," Luna continued. "But the truth is I work twice as hard as everyone else just to keep up." "Why do you feel like you have to work harder?" Luna was quiet for a moment, twirling noodles around her chopsticks. "My family has a lot of expectations. I'm the first person in my family to go to college, let alone graduate school. Everyone back home is watching to see if I'll succeed or fail." Jake felt a connection to what she was saying. His family had expectations too, though maybe different ones. They expected him to get his degree, find a stable job, and follow a predictable path. Sometimes he felt like he was living someone else's life instead of his own. That sounds like a lot of pressure, he said. It is. And the worst part is I can't really talk to anyone about it. My friends here don't understand because most of them have parents who went to college. They have safety nets I don't have. And my family back home doesn't understand what graduate school is actually like. Jake moved a little closer to her on the couch without really thinking about it. You can talk to me about it, he said. I might not understand everything, but I'm a good listener. Luna looked at him with surprise. Really? You wouldn't mind? Of course not. We spend so much time talking about schoolwork and research. It would be nice to have conversations about real life too. Real life, Luna repeated with a small laugh. Sometimes I forget there's supposed to be a life outside of studying and working. What do you miss most? Jake asked. About having a normal life, I mean. Luna thought about it while she finished her rice. I miss feeling relaxed. I can't remember the last time I just sat somewhere without thinking about what I should be doing instead. Even right now, part of my brain is making a list of all the things I need to catch up on tomorrow. Jake laughed. I do the same thing. Even when I'm trying to watch TV or read for fun, I start feeling guilty about not working on my thesis. Exactly. It's like we've forgotten how to just exist without being productive. They finished eating and Jake cleared away the empty containers. When he came back to the couch, Luna had curled up in the corner with one of his throw pillows in her lap. She looked more relaxed than he'd seen her all evening. Can I tell you something? She said. I almost didn't knock on your door tonight. Why? Because I was scared you'd say no. Or worse, that you'd say yes but think I was weird for asking. Jake sat back down, this time a little closer than before. I would never think you were weird for needing help. I know that now. But standing out in the hallway, getting soaked by the rain, I kept thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. What if you had someone over? What if you were busy? What if you just didn't want me here? But you knocked anyway. Yeah, I did. I guess I figured the worst you could say was no, and I'd be in the same situation I was already in. Jake admired her courage. He wasn't sure he would have been brave enough to ask for help if he were in her position. He probably would have just stayed at the library all night, even in a storm. I'm glad you knocked, he said. Luna smiled. A real smile this time, not the polite one she usually gave in class. Me too. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, listening to the rain. Jake noticed things about Luna he'd never seen before. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was thinking. How she rubbed her hands together when she was nervous. The fact that she had a small scar on her chin that was barely visible. What are you looking at? Luna asked, catching him staring. Jake felt his face get warm.
Sorry, I was just thinking that I've never really looked at you before.
I mean, I've seen you hundreds of times, but I've never just looked. What do you see? It was a simple question, but something about the way she asked it made Jake's heart beat faster. There was something vulnerable in her voice, like his answer actually mattered to her. I see someone who's stronger than she thinks she is, he said carefully. Someone who cares about things deeply, maybe too deeply sometimes. Someone who's beautiful but doesn't seem to know it. Luna's cheeks turned pink. Jake, I see someone I'd like to know better, he continued. Outside of the library and class discussions about research methods, the air between them felt different suddenly. Charged somehow. Jake realized they were sitting closer than they'd ever sat before. Close enough that he could smell her shampoo, something light and floral. I'd like that too, Luna said softly. They looked at each other for a long moment. Jake felt like something important was happening, but he wasn't sure what. All he knew was that having Luna here in his space felt right in a way he hadn't expected. Part 3. It was getting late, but neither of them seemed to want the evening to end. They talked about everything. Their childhoods, their dreams for the future, their fears about finishing school and entering the real world. Jake learned that Luna loved old movies and could quote entire scenes from classic films. Luna discovered that Jake wrote poetry in his spare time, something he'd never told anyone. You write poetry? Luna asked, her eyes lighting up with interest. What kind of poetry? Jake felt embarrassed. It's not very good. Just stuff I write when I can't sleep or when I'm thinking too much. Can I read some of it? I don't know. It's pretty personal. Luna moved even closer to him on the couch. I just told you my deepest fears about failing my family and letting everyone down. I think we're past keeping secrets, she had a point. Jake got up and went to his desk, pulling out a small notebook from one of the drawers. His hands were shaking slightly as he handed it to her. "These are just rough drafts," he said quickly. "Nothing polished or anything." Luna opened the notebook carefully like she was handling something precious. She read silently for several minutes while Jake sat there feeling more nervous than he had during his thesis defense. "Jake," she said finally, looking up at him with wide eyes, "these are beautiful. This one about missing connections between people. It's exactly how I've been feeling lately." "Really? Really, you have a gift for putting feelings into words. I wish I could do that." "You do it differently. When you explain complex research concepts, you make them feel human somehow. Not everyone can do that." Luna closed the notebook and held it against her chest. "Thank you for sharing this with me. It means a lot that you trust me with something so personal." The storm outside was finally starting to calm down. The heavy rain had become a gentle pattering against the window. Jake realized it was almost midnight. "I should probably let you get some rest," he said. "You must be exhausted." "I am tired," Luna admitted. "But I don't want this night to end. I feel like I'm finally getting to know the real you, not just the Jake from psychology class." "The real me is probably pretty boring compared to the Jake you imagined." Luna shook her head. "The real you is so much more interesting. You think about things deeply. You notice details other people miss. You're kind without expecting anything in return." Jake didn't know what to say to that. No one had ever described him that way before. "I should set up the couch for you," he said, standing up to get the extra blankets and pillows. "Actually," Luna said, and something in her voice made him turn around. "Would it be okay if... Could I maybe sleep in your room instead?" Jake's heart stopped for a moment. The question hung in the air between them like a bridge neither of them had expected to find. "I mean," Luna said quickly, seeing his surprised expression. "Not in a weird way. The couch looks uncomfortable, and your bed is big enough for two people to sleep without it being strange. We're both adults. We've been friends for months." Jake looked at his bed, then back at Luna. She was right. It was a queen-size bed, and they could easily sleep on opposite sides without even touching. But something about the idea made his pulse quicken. "Are you sure that's what you want?" he asked carefully. "I'm sure. Unless it would make you uncomfortable." Jake thought about it. The logical part of his brain said it was just sleeping. People shared beds all the time without it meaning anything. But the other part of his brain, the part that had been noticing how beautiful Luna looked in the soft lamplight, wasn't so sure it would be that simple. "Okay," he said finally, "but I'll sleep on top of the covers. That way there's a clear boundary." Luna smiled. "That works." Jake went to his dresser and pulled out a clean t-shirt and sweatpants. "I'm going to change in the bathroom," he said. "Make yourself comfortable." In the bathroom, Jake stared at himself in the mirror. His hair was messy from running his hands through it, and he looked nervous. What was he doing? This was Luna, his study partner. They were just friends helping each other out. But even as he told himself that, he knew something had shifted between them tonight. The way she looked at him when he shared his poetry. The way she moved closer to him on the couch. The way she asked to sleep in his bed instead of keeping her distance on the couch. When he came back to the room, Luna was sitting on the edge of his bed. She had changed into a simple cotton pajama top and shorts. Her wet clothes were hanging over his desk chair to dry. "I hope you don't mind that I borrowed your bathroom to change," she said. "Of course not," Jake noticed she was sitting exactly where she had been in his imagination when he first opened the door to find her in the rain. But now she was here, real in his actual bedroom. "Jake," she said softly, "can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you think about me?" "I mean, when we're not studying together?" The question caught him off guard. Jake sat down on the other side of the bed, leaving space between them. "Yes," he said honestly. "I think about you a lot, actually." "What do you think about?" Jake felt his face get warm. "I think about our conversations. How you always seem to understand things that other people miss. How you make me laugh without even trying. How smart you are, but not in a way that makes other people feel stupid." Luna was quiet for a moment. "I think about you too," she said finally. "I think about how safe I feel when I'm with you. How you listen to me like what I'm saying actually matters. How you never make me feel like I'm asking stupid questions." They looked at each other across the bed. The space between them felt like both too much and not enough at the same time. "Luna," Jake said, "I need to tell you something." "What?" "Tonight isn't just about helping a friend. I mean, it started that way, but somewhere along the line it became something else for me. Luna moved a little closer to him on the bed. What did it become? Jake took a deep breath. It became about spending time with someone I care about more than I probably should. Someone who makes me want to be braver than I usually am. Jake, I know this might change things between us, he continued, and if you want to pretend I never said any of this, we can do that. But I couldn't let you sleep here without being honest about how I'm feeling. Luna was quiet for so long that Jake started to worry he had ruined everything. Maybe he should have just kept his feelings to himself. Can I tell you a secret? Luna said finally. Of course. The reason I came here tonight wasn't just because my roommate situation is bad. I mean, it is bad, but I could have stayed at the library longer, or called one of my other friends. Then why did you come here? Luna took a deep breath like she was gathering courage. Because I wanted to see you. I've been wanting to spend time with you outside of school for weeks, but I couldn't figure out how to ask without making it weird. Jake felt like his heart might beat right out of his chest. Really? Really? I've been hoping something would give me an excuse to see what you're like when it's just us, with no textbooks or assignments or other people around. And what do you think? Jake asked. Now that you've seen me without textbooks? Luna moved closer to him on the bed until there was only about a foot of space between them. I think you're exactly who I hoped you would be. They sat there looking at each other, both of them aware that they were at a turning point. Whatever happened next would change their friendship forever. So what do we do now? Jake asked. I don't know, Luna admitted. I've never been in this situation before. What situation? Being friends with someone and then realizing I want more than friendship? Jake's breath caught in his throat. Is that what you want? More than friendship? Luna nodded slowly. Is that what you want too? Yes, Jake said without hesitation. But I don't want to mess up what we already have. What if we don't mess it up? What if we make it better? Jake reached out slowly and took her hand. Her fingers were warm and soft, and they fit perfectly with his. We would have to take it slow, he said. Figure it out as we go. I can do slow, Luna said. As long as we're figuring it out together. Jake squeezed her hand gently. They decided to lie down, still holding hands across the space between them. Jake stayed on top of the covers like he had promised while Luna slipped under the blanket on her side of the bed. This is nice, Luna said quietly in the darkness. Yeah, it is. Jake?
Yeah? Thank you for letting me stay here tonight.
Not just for the place to sleep, but for all of this. Thank you for knocking on my door. They lay there in comfortable silence for a few minutes, listening to the rain getting softer outside. Jake could hear Luna's breathing becoming slower and deeper, but he knew she wasn't asleep yet. Can I tell you something else? Luna whispered. Of course. I've been thinking about this moment for weeks. Not exactly this moment, but something like it. A chance to really talk to you, to see if what I was feeling was real or just my imagination. Jake turned his head to look at her in the dim light coming through the window. And what do you think now? I think it's more real than I even imagined. Jake felt his heart skip. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and find out this was all a dream. If it is a dream, I don't want to wake up. They were quiet again, but it wasn't an awkward silence. It was the kind of quiet that happens between two people who finally understand each other. Jake, Luna said after a while. What happens tomorrow? What do you mean? I mean, when we go back to class on Monday, when we see each other in the library, do we pretend tonight never happened? Do we act like nothing changed? Jake thought about it. The idea of going back to their old friendship, of pretending he didn't know how her hand felt in his or how her eyes lit up when she talked about things she cared about, seemed impossible now. I don't think I could pretend nothing changed, he said honestly. Could you? No, I don't want to pretend, so we don't pretend. We figure out what this is together. Luna squeezed his hand. What if people notice? What if our classmates start talking? Let them talk. The only opinions that matter are yours and mine. You're braver than I thought, Luna said with a soft laugh. You make me braver. They talked in whispers for another hour, sharing stories they'd never told anyone. Luna told him about the first time she realized she wanted to study psychology, how she'd been fascinated by the way people communicated without words. Jake told her about his fear that his research would never matter to anyone, that he'd spend years studying human connection but never really connect with anyone himself. You're connecting now, Luna said softly. With me? Yeah, I am. Jake? I'm scared. About what? About messing this up? About wanting something so much that I ruin it by trying too hard? Jake turned onto his side to face her, their joined hands now resting between them on the bed. You won't mess it up, he said. We won't mess it up. We're both too careful for that. Maybe being careful isn't always the right thing. What do you mean? Luna was quiet for a moment, like she was choosing her words carefully. I mean, maybe sometimes you have to take risks. Maybe sometimes you have to stop thinking so much and just feel. Jake's breath caught. What are you feeling right now? Safe, happy, like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. She paused. And nervous. Really, really nervous. Why nervous? Because I've never felt this way about anyone before. Because I don't know the rules for this. Because everything feels different when you're lying here next to me. Jake understood exactly what she meant. Everything did feel different. The air in the room felt charged with possibility. The space between them felt like both too much and not nearly enough. Luna, he said softly. Yeah? Can I tell you what I'm feeling? Please. I'm feeling like I've been waiting my whole life for this moment without even knowing it. Like all those hours we spent studying together were leading up to this. Like maybe I understand my own research better now because I'm finally experiencing what I've been trying to study. Luna smiled in the darkness. What's your research conclusion, Dr. Jake? Jake laughed quietly. That human connection is more complicated and more simple than we think. Complicated because there are so many layers to it. Simple because when it's right, you just know. And this is right? This is right. They lay there looking at each other, their faces only inches apart. Jake could feel Luna's breath on his face, could see the way her eyes reflected the dim light from the window. Jake, Luna whispered. Yeah, I want to kiss you. Jake's heart stopped completely. Luna, but I don't want to rush anything. I don't want to complicate what we're building here. Wanting to kiss someone doesn't complicate things, Jake said softly. It's actually pretty simple, is it? Jake reached up with his free hand and gently touched her face. Can I tell you a secret? Yes. I've been wanting to kiss you since the moment you smiled at me when I opened the door tonight. Luna's eyes went wide. Really? Really? You were soaked and shivering, and you smiled at me like I was the answer to all your problems. And I thought, this is the most beautiful person I've ever seen. Jake, but I want to do this right. I want to take our time. I want to make sure we're both ready. Luna nodded. I want that too. So maybe tonight we just hold hands and talk and get used to the idea that this is happening. And tomorrow? Tomorrow we see where it goes. Luna moved closer to him on the bed, close enough that their foreheads were almost touching. I like this plan, she said. Good. They stayed like that, foreheads touching, hands intertwined, breathing the same air until Luna finally fell asleep. Jake lay awake for a while longer, watching her peaceful face in the dim light, hardly believing that this beautiful, brilliant, complicated person had chosen to trust him with her heart. Outside, the storm had completely passed. The city was quiet except for the occasional car passing by. Jake had never felt more awake or more at peace in his entire life. The next morning, Jake woke up to sunlight streaming through his window and the smell of coffee coming from his kitchen. For a moment, he was confused. He never made coffee first thing in the morning. Then he remembered Luna. He sat up and looked around his room. Luna's side of the bed was empty, but he could hear her moving around in the kitchen. The sheets still smelled like her shampoo. Sometime during the night, they had moved closer together, and Jake could still feel the warmth where her body had been next to his. Jake got up and walked to the kitchen area. Luna was standing at his counter, fully dressed in her clothes from yesterday, which were now dry. She had found his coffee maker and was pouring herself a cup. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she looked fresh and beautiful in the morning light. Good morning, she said, smiling at him over her mug. I hope you don't mind that I made coffee. Not at all. It smells amazing. Luna poured him a cup and handed it to him. Their fingers brushed as he took the mug, and Jake felt that same spark he had felt when they held hands the night before. How did you sleep, he asked. Better than I have in weeks, Luna said. Your bed is really comfortable. I'm glad. They stood there drinking their coffee, both of them seeming a little shy in the morning light. Last night had felt like a dream, and now they were both trying to figure out what it meant in the real world. So, Luna said finally. What happens now? Jake set down his coffee mug and stepped closer to her. Now we see where this goes. One day at a time. Are we dating now? Luna asked with a small laugh. I don't even know how to define what this is. We're us, Jake said. Whatever that means. We don't have to put a label on it right away. Luna smiled. I like that answer. Jake reached out and tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. The gesture felt natural, like something he had been doing for years. Can I see you tonight? He asked. I mean properly see you. Like a date. I would love that. Good, because I already have ideas about where I want to take you. Oh, really? Where? Jake grinned. It's a surprise. Luna laughed, and the sound filled his small apartment with warmth. I love surprises. Then we're going to get along just fine. They finished their coffee and talked about their plans for the day. Luna needed to go back to her apartment to get fresh clothes and deal with her roommate situation. Jake had work to do on his thesis, but they made plans to meet that evening for their first official date. I should probably head out, Luna said, looking at the clock. I have a million things to do today. Of course. Jake walked her to the door. Before she left, she turned back to him. Jake? Yeah? Last night was perfect. All of it. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed his cheek softly. Jake felt like he might float away. I'll see you tonight, she said. See you tonight. Jake watched her walk down the hallway until she disappeared around the corner. Then he closed the door and leaned against it, grinning like an idiot. His thesis was still sitting on his desk, waiting to be finished. His apartment was still small and cluttered. His life was still uncertain in a dozen different ways. But somehow everything felt different now. Everything felt possible. That evening, Jake took Luna to a small bookstore cafe that stayed open late. They spent hours browsing the shelves together, reading passages from books out loud to each other, sharing coffee and pastries. It was the perfect first date for two people who had fallen in love over books and conversation. This place is perfect, Luna said as they sat in a corner booth surrounded by towers of books.
How did you know about it?
I come here sometimes when I need to think, Jake said. It's quiet but not lonely. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. They talked about everything and nothing. Luna told him about her favorite books growing up. Jake shared his secret dream of writing a novel someday. They discovered they both loved the same obscure poets and had read many of the same psychology texts. I can't believe we never talked about books before, Luna said. We have so much in common. We were too busy being professional study partners, Jake said. Maybe we needed to get rained on together before we could really see each other. I'm glad we got rained on. As the evening went on, they moved closer together in the booth. Their hands found each other across the table. They shared bites of dessert and lingering looks that made Jake's heart race. Jake, Luna said as they walked back to his apartment later that night. Yeah, thank you for tonight. For all of this. Thank you for taking a chance on us. They stopped walking and looked at each other under a streetlight. The city was quiet around them, and Jake felt like they were the only two people in the world. Can I ask you something? Luna said. Anything. Earlier you said you wanted to kiss me since the moment I showed up at your door. Is that still true? Jake's breath caught. Yes, very much, yes. Good, Luna said, stepping closer to him. Because I really want to kiss you too. Jake reached up and cupped her face gently in his hands. Are you sure? I'm sure. Their first kiss was soft and sweet and perfect. It tasted like coffee and promise and the beginning of something beautiful. When they broke apart, Luna was smiling. That was worth waiting for, she said. Definitely worth waiting for. 6 months later, Jake and Luna were sitting in their new apartment, their apartment together. Jake's thesis was finished and accepted. Luna had decided to stay in town for her doctoral program. They had kept their promise to take things slow, to figure it out together one day at a time. Do you remember that night when I showed up at your door in the rain? Luna asked, curled up next to Jake on their new couch. Best night of my life, Jake said, kissing the top of her head. Mine too. Even though you were soaked and homeless and stressed about school? Luna laughed, especially because of all that. If none of those things had happened, I never would have been brave enough to knock on your door. Jake thought about that, how sometimes the worst nights turn into the best memories, How sometimes getting caught in the rain leads you exactly where you need to be. I'm glad you got caught in that storm, he said. Me too. Best decision I ever made. Outside their new apartment, it started to rain again, but this time they were safe and warm and together, exactly where they belonged. Look, Luna said, pointing to the window. It's raining again. Should we go stand in it? Jake asked with a grin. Maybe later. Right now, I like being dry and warm with you. I like that too. They sat together listening to the rain, thinking about how one stormy night had changed everything. How sometimes the most beautiful things in life come from the most unexpected moments. How sometimes you have to get a little wet before you find exactly where you belong. And as the rain fell softly against their windows, Jake and Luna knew they were home.